Hey guys, Rich from Rich Big Gaming. Hope everyone is doing fantastically well, and welcome to this episode 3 of our beginner's guide to Star Wars Shatterpoint, where we're going to take the entire rulebook, plus anything that gets confirmed on forums and everything else, and take those rules for you and put them in a video format, hopefully making it much easier for you guys to fully understand the rules, ready and in preparation for Shatterpoint to be released in June. I know I'm really looking forward to it. And a quick reminder, guys, stick around to the end of the video because I will be asking you a question that you need to answer in the comment section below, because we are giving away a Star Wars Shatterpoint core box to one lucky viewer, subscriber, liker, commenter on May the 4th. So make sure you hang around for that. So in this video, we're going to skip a little bit forward and we're going to talk not about the game mechanics themselves. We're going to deep dive into some of those over the next few videos, but we're going to talk about winning the game. How do you win a game of Star Wars Shatterpoint? So to win a game of Star Wars Shatterpoint, you basically need to win 2 struggles. Struggles are the phases in the game. It's going to be 2 that you need to win, but you can play up to a maximum of 3. So it's essentially a best of 3. So let's take a quick look then at what a struggle is and how it's going to work. So as we went over in the last video, this is the struggle track. Now, throughout a game, or at the beginning of the game, we're going to place the struggle token in the middle on the 0, and then each player will place 1 momentum token, these little black tokens, at either end, covering up 8. Now, as the game progresses, the struggle token is going to move back and forth as VPs are scored. We're going to add in additional momentum tokens until eventually the struggle token and one of the momentum tokens meets, and that means that whichever player manages to do that wins the first struggle. Now this will carry on. If player 2 wins the second struggle, they're going to get their card as well, going into a third and final round, and then whoever wins that one will take the prize, take the win. But obviously you can win 2 on the bounce. It's also important to note that this struggle tracker is reset at the end of each particular struggle. So nothing stays on there. The momentum moves back and the struggle tracker moves into the middle. So the struggle cube moves, the struggle token moves, momentum goes in there. So let's have a look at how we can do these various different things. Let's have a look at some of those in-game scoring mechanics, starting with controlling objectives. If you remember from the last video, objectives are going to be defined by 2 things. First of all, we're going to have the mission card, the mission map. Here you can see it's shifting priorities. It's always going to be shifting priorities, guys, because that's the only one that we've got at the moment. You can see where the all of the objectives are going to be placed, and then we take our phase 1 card, which is on this one is going to be still the secret plans, and those 5 lit up objective markers are going to be the active ones, and each one of these that we control at the end of our turn, yes, you're going to score VPs at the end of every single turn, is going to score you 1 victory point, allowing you to move that marker, that struggle token, 1 back towards your side of the tracker. Now, once phase 1 is complete, we then move into phase 2, and you can see there that layout is quite a bit different. So basically the person or the player who lost the first struggle will take this phase 2 card, turn it upright, and they'll look at this card as if the bottom end of this card was their deployment zone. And they're going to have 2 options. They can either activate the bottom 2 and the one in the middle at the far end, or the one in the middle that's closest to them and the 2 at the other end. You get how it works. But you'll notice the little symbols that are on there as well. Now, each one of these is still only worth 1 point until we start to look at a priority objective. Now, how does a priority objective work? Well, at the beginning of each player's turn, they're going to roll 1 defense die. Now, each of those symbols on the phase 2 card, we're going to need a new exit, corresponds to one of the 3 symbols that we see on the defense die. So for that turn and that turn only, when they roll it, and let's say that they come up with a failure and they've chosen the bottom deployment, that failure mark on the bottom right-hand corner of that deployment is going to become the priority, meaning that for this turn only, they're going to score 2 VPs if they contest that at the end of their turn. However, when the next player activates, they roll it again. And it can end up being any one of these 3 objectives that we got. So this priority token is constantly moving around. It could stay in the same place. You know, there's a 33% chance that it does, because there's 2 of each symbols on the actual dice themselves, or a D6, but it's going to give you opportunities to score more VPs, and it's really going to change how the game is being played, because all of a sudden the value of those is double that of any other objective on the board. So that's how we're going to be able to move the struggle tracker, or the primary way that we're going to be able to move the struggle tracker is by controlling these objectives and scoring VPs at the end of our turn. But how do we actually control an objective? Well, I want to run through a couple of examples here. So we've got an active objective token here. Ahsoka Tano is going to take her turn and she's going to move in, and she is going to be within range 2 of that objective at the end of her turn. Therefore, she's going to be able to flip that, put down her token, and at the end of her turn, she will score 1 VP, allowing her to move the track 1 plus any other VPs that are scored as well. That's another important note. I didn't put this in here, but it is important that at the end of your turn, you score the VPs for all of the objectives that you are currently controlling, not just the one that is nearest to your last activated character. What's also really important is, even if Ahsoka moves away, as long as there's nobody else contesting that objective, when it comes to the end of the next turn, they're still going to score VPs for that objective there, because nobody from the red side has come along and taken it. Another quick example, Ahsoka is contesting this objective, she's within range 2, and then an unruly unit of B1 battle droids moves into place within range 2. They end their turn. Unfortunately for the dark side player, or the red player in this one, they're actually not going to score any VPs for this particular objective, because to flip an objective, so once your opponent has already taken it, you need more more characters. That's really important as well. More characters contesting that point than your opponent has. So in this example, Ahsoka has already won that objective for her team. The B1s come in, even though they're within range 1 and they're contesting, they're not able to flip that point or gain that objective because they don't have more characters. Now, the reason I said characters there and not units is, as we talked about in previous videos, a unit can have multiple characters in there. So if there was 2 units of B1s in here, two characters of B1, so a full unit, then they would move that objective over. And that's exactly what Darth Maul is going to do. So he's moved up, he's ended his turn, and now he's ended his turn, they've got 2 characters within range 2, therefore they can flip that objective, and the red side is going to be scoring the points. Now, happy that they've secured the objective, the B1s are on their merry way and doing something completely different, but it's Ahsoka Tano's turn to activate again. For whatever reason, you might have drawn that really good Shatterpoint card, meaning that she's able to take another action and hopefully do something, not even just an action, a full activation, and hopefully do something to stop Darth Maul. Ahsoka Tano decides to choose violence, which, I'm a big fan of, and she does 11 damage to Lord Maul. I probably called him Darth Maul, but she does 11 damage to Lord Maul, meaning that he is going to get a wounded token. Now, why is this wounded token important? Well, whilst ever a character has, or a unit even, has a wounded token, they can no longer contest objectives. That means at the end of Ahsoka Tano's turn, she's going to be able to flip that objective back so that she scores the VPs and again is able to move that struggle tracker along. I want to just use this moment as well to point out that it's only whilst the character is wounded that they cannot contest. The moment that character reactivates, removes the damage and gains an injured token, they're still able to contest and have as much priority over contesting as a character who has no injured token. So just wanted to point that one out here as well. Now, as we know in Star Wars Shatterpoint, height and elevation play a really, really big part when it comes to traversing terrain and other such things, but it also plays a big part when it comes to controlling objectives as well. So if we take a look at this picture here, at first glance, you may see that and see, okay, well, we have Gar Saxon and a Mandalorian Super Commando, both very easily within range 2 of the objective, and therefore they will get the point because they have 2 and Anakin is there by himself. Unfortunately, for the Mandalorians, that is not the case. You will always have priority and you'll always count the characters or the units as well that are on the same elevation level as the actual objective itself. So in this case, Anakin is the only unit or character within range 2 that is at the same elevation level. Therefore, at the end of his turn, and also at the end of the Mandalorian's turns as well, he will be able to maintain that objective. So even now, if Gar Saxon was to activate, stayed exactly where he is, he isn't going to be able to flip that point, even though there's 2 of them there, because the person with the elevation on the same level always gets the priority. It's also worth pointing out as well that we don't use those other characters for tie breaks. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let's say that Gar Saxon and the Mandalorian Super Commando even are there. Anakin's taken his turn, he's got this point, and Darth Maul moves in again. I've called him Darth Maul. Maybe that's the question. How many Darth Mauls in a single video? Lord Maul moves in within range 2. Now, you may think, you look at this, okay, well, we've got Lord Maul, he's within range 2, but then we've also got the 2 other units within range 2 just at the elevation below. We only count characters outside of the elevation zone of the objective if there were no characters actually contesting it at that same elevation level. So this actually means that we're back in that same situation that the B1s had with Ahsoka. Lord Maul isn't able to flip that objective because Anakin is still contesting it, and he doesn't have more characters contesting the objective than what the blue player does. So it stays exactly as it is. Now, there are some other ways that have been introduced to actually move the struggle token. And one I want to pick up on straight away, back to General Anakin Skywalker, we've got this is where the fun begins. So when a character in this unit wounds an enemy primary unit or enemy secondary unit, after the effect is resolved, move the struggle token 1 space toward your momentum tokens. So this is something outside of end of turn where Anakin is able to score some extra VPs essentially. And keep an eye on the card because there's going to be more ways to be able to do this, I imagine, as new characters get introduced to the game as well. Okay, so that is the struggle side of things, and we know that that token moves up and down. But what about momentum? Well, as I mentioned, you're going to start with 1 momentum each. That starts on 8, and you're going to be able to do multiple things throughout the game, throughout your turns even, where they're going to add extra momentum on. We're going to go through those in a second, but one thing I wanted to point out, and I didn't realize this until actually rereading through the rules, is each player can earn or score momentum tokens right the way up to 1. Now, I don't think it can happen like this, just because it never would, but maybe 1 player could. But what you can never do is place a momentum token on the middle point. If that was to ever happen, then basically that you just wouldn't place the extra token. The game would carry on. and then the next person who got the struggle token to touch the momentum token, they would be the winner. So let's have a little look then at the various ways in which you can gain these momentum tokens. Okay then, so the first way that we're going to be able to gain momentum tokens is through combat, and in particular through wounding or indeed removing an enemy unit from the board. So we've got General Anakin Skywalker here going up against Lord Maul. Anakin doing what Anakin does best. Dishes out 11 damage. Poor Lord Maul has been on the receiving end of it in this video, hasn't he? We're dishing out 11 damage, causing that wound, and then gaining that momentum token. And obviously with Anakin, you'd also be able to shimmy the struggle token on there one as well. The other way that you can actually gain momentum tokens is if you score at the end of your turn, if you score VPs, but you don't manage to pull it back over to your side of the track, you gain a momentum token. And then the last way is going to be where both players gain one. So if at the end of your turn, or indeed your opponent's turn, the struggle token moves and it ends up in the middle, the 0 point, then both players are going to gain those momentum tokens. So these momentum tokens really do act like a timer for the actual phases, meaning that, you know, games in Shatterpoint I don't think are going to be particularly long. You know, I think they're maybe going to be an hour and 30 minutes at the absolute most, at least once you get into it and you start to learn all of the different rules. And there we go, guys. That is how you win a game of Star Wars Shatterpoint. So remember, it's the best of 3 struggles. You need to win 2 of them. You gain momentum by causing wounds. There's a couple of other ways that you get in there as well. But the way that you're really going to win this game is through scoring VPs, especially when you get into phase 2 and potentially phase 3, where you've got those priority objectives. So really want to think about how you're deploying your characters, really want to think about the actions that you're taking with your characters, especially as each character only gets to make one of each action. So 2 actions in total, but you can only make 1 movement action, for example. You can only make 1 attack action. And whilst I think it's going to be very interesting into the later rounds, if you do manage to take some of your opponent's units off the board, because that's going to be a really, really big swing when it comes to scoring and things. I very much doubt that games of Shatterpoint are going to be won by tabling your opponent. You know, they sometimes happen in MCP. They rarely happen in Star Wars Legion. I really think it's going to be a rarity in Shatterpoint. So you need to think more about your positioning, the VPs that you're scoring, the control that you've got over your opponent. You know, one thing I didn't show there in the example with Ahsoka and Maul was, you know, Maul has abilities on his card where you can shove people away. Now, being able to shove somebody away means that potentially you're pushing them off that objective, meaning that even though they were there at the beginning of the turn, they ain't going to be there at the end of your turn, meaning you can flip that point and score those extra VPs. But there we go, guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. As I mentioned, we are going to be giving away that Star Wars Shatterpoint core box on the 4th of May. So the question for this video is, what do you guys think about the scoring system? I haven't seen another game that does scoring like this. I think it's really, really interesting. It feels really fast-paced, and I really do like that. And I've said really a lot there. But yeah, so what you need to do is you need to make sure you leave a comment answering that question down on this video. Make sure you've hit that subscribe button. Also, make sure you hit a like as well. Even if you don't want to enter the competition, hit a like. It really, really does help. Apparently, the YouTube algorithm gods appreciate those sacrifices that you make in those free likes that you give. And also go and check out the other videos that we've done as well. This is the 3rd in this series, but we have actually got other Shatterpoint videos where we've asked questions on each of those, because we're picking a video at random and then picking a random comment on one of those random videos as well. And as I mentioned, that lucky winner will then get a Star Wars Shatterpoint core box. Also, go check out the Discord. There'll be a link down in the description below. And if you do want to support us even further, we do have our Patreon up and running as well. And as always, guys, it leaves me with just enough time to say stay well, keep safe, and until next time, may the Force be with you.